memory, I thought we were finally getting our fairy tale ending. I was 12, still young enough to believe in happy endings, still naive enough to think a mansion could feel like home. How wrong I was. My name is Isabella Torres, and looking back, I should have known better. The signs were there from the start, in Victoria's cold stares, in the whispers among the household staff, in the way Richard's friends looked at my mother like she didn't belong. But Mom was in love, and I wanted to believe. Maria Torres, former housekeeper turned lady of the house. It was like something out of a movie. Victoria, my new stepsister, made sure I never forgot our origins. Your mother might have fooled my father, she'd say, examining her perfectly manicured nails. But everyone knows what she really is, what you really are. I tried to ignore her at first. At 14, Victoria was already an expert in casual cruelty, while I was still learning to navigate this new world of private schools and charity galas. But some barbs cut too deep to ignore. It all came to a head the night of Richard's annual Christmas party. I was 15 by then, and Mom had been sick for months. Cancer, the doctors said, spreading faster than anyone expected. Victoria found me in the library, hiding from the party crowds. "There you are," she said, her designer dress rustling as she approached. "Hiding like the servant you are? How fitting." I kept my eyes on my book. "Leave me alone, Victoria. Oh, but I have news." Her voice dripped with false sweetness. "I just overheard Daddy talking to his lawyers. Apparently, your gold digger mother never signed a prenup. Can you believe it?" My head snapped up. "Don't talk about my mother like that." She laughed, the sound like breaking glass. "Why not? It's true. She probably planned this whole thing. Marry rich, get sick, win sympathy. Too bad she won't live long enough to enjoy the money." I stood up so quickly my book crashed to the floor. "Shut up." "Make me." She stepped closer, her perfect features twisted with malice. "You're nothing, Isabella. Just the maid's daughter playing dress-up in a world you don't belong in. And once your mother is gone, you won't even have that." I don't remember moving. One moment we were facing each other. The next my hand was stinging and a red mark bloomed across Victoria's cheek. Her shriek brought the party to a halt. Within moments, Richard burst into the library, followed by several guests. Victoria threw herself into his arms, sobbing dramatically. "She attacked me, Daddy. I was just trying to be nice, and she hit me." Richard turned to me, his face thunderous. "Is this true, Isabella?" "She was insulting my mother," I said, my voice shaking. "She stayed." "I don't care what she said," he cut me off. "We don't resolve conflicts with violence in this house. Go to your room. We'll discuss your punishment later." As I walked past them, Victoria's tears miraculously dried up long enough for her to smirk at me. I should have known then that this was just the beginning. Mom died 3 months later. The house that had never felt like home became a prison. Richard retreated into his work, leaving Victoria free to escalate her torment. It started small, my belongings disappearing, rumors spread at school, accidents that always seemed to happen when no one was watching. But as the months passed, Victoria grew bolder. One rainy afternoon, I came home from school to find my room in chaos. Victoria stood among the destruction, holding a framed photo of my mother and me. "I've been doing some cleaning," she said, dropping the frame. Glass shattered across the floor. "This isn't your home anymore, Isabella. It never was." I watched helplessly as she and her friends threw my clothes, my books, everything I owned out into the rain. When I tried to stop them, they locked me in the bathroom. "Your mother might have trapped my father," Victoria called through the door. "But you have no claim here. You're just the maid's daughter. Remember that." Hours later, when Richard finally found me, my belongings were ruined by the rain. Victoria played the innocent, claiming she caught me trying to steal from her room. Richard, as always, believed her. But what Victoria didn't know, what none of them knew, was that my mother had left me something far more valuable than clothes or books. A secret that would change everything. The day before she died, Mom had called me to her bedside. Her voice was weak, but her eyes were sharp as ever. "Isabella, my amour," she whispered, pressing a key into my hand. "In my old room, behind the loose panel, there's something you need to know. But not yet. Wait until you're ready. Wait until the right moment." I kept that key hidden for years, waiting, watching, enduring Victoria's cruelty and Richard's indifference. I focused on my studies, earned a scholarship to college, and got as far away from them as I could. For 10 years, I never looked back. I built a life for myself, became successful in my own right. The key stayed hidden in my jewelry box, almost forgotten. Then came the call that would change everything. Richard Montgomery was dead. Heart attack at his desk. And his will? Well, his will would reveal secrets that not even Victoria was prepared for. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. Sometimes it's about waiting for the perfect moment to reveal the truth. And my moment was finally coming. Walking back into the Montgomery mansion after 10 years felt like stepping into a time capsule. The same ornate chandelier hung in the foyer, casting prismatic shadows across marble floors. The same oil paintings of stern-faced ancestors lined the walls. Even the air smelled the same, a mix of lemon polish and old money. But I was different. At 25, I wasn't the scared teenager Victoria had tormented. My simple black dress was Chanel, my heels Louboutin, small indulgences for my success as an investment banker. I'd learned that sometimes the best armor is wearing your achievements quietly. Victoria was already there, of course, holding court in the library where we had our first real confrontation a decade ago. She aged well, I had to admit. Marriage to a hedge fund manager and 3 rounds of subtle plastic surgery had kept her looking like the princess she'd always thought she was. Her eyes narrowed when she saw me. Well, the prodigal stepsister returns. I'm surprised you have the nerve to show your face here. I smiled, noting how her perfect mask slipped just slightly at my lack of reaction. Hello, Victoria. You look preserved. Before she could respond, Mr. Harrison, Richard's longtime lawyer, cleared his throat. Now that everyone's here, shall we begin? Victoria arranged herself elegantly on the leather sofa, her current husband Bradley hovering nearby like an expensive accessory. I chose to stand, enjoying the slight height advantage it gave me. As you know, Mr. Harrison began, Richard Montgomery's estate is substantial. The house, the company, various investments and properties, all told, approximately $50 million. Victoria's smile widened. She'd already mentally spent every penny, I was sure. However, Harrison continued, there are some unusual stipulations in the will, and a letter to be read before the distribution of assets. He pulled an envelope from his briefcase. Victoria shifted impatiently. Is this really necessary? We all know how this goes. Daddy left everything to me, his only real daughter. Can we skip the dramatics? Harrison ignored her, breaking the seal on the envelope. His eyes scanned the contents and something shifted in his expression. This letter was written by Richard 5 years ago, he said. I'll read it exactly as written. To my daughter Victoria and to Isabella. If you're hearing this, I'm dead. Good, because I've been dead inside for years, ever since I learned the truth about what happened to Maria. Victoria rolled her eyes, but I felt my heart skip. My mother's name hadn't been spoken in this house for a decade. Maria Torres wasn't just a housekeeper who seduced me, as everyone believed. She was my first love, long before I married Victoria's mother. We were young, careless, and her family didn't approve. When she discovered she was pregnant, her parents sent her away. I didn't know where. By the time I found her again, years later, she was working as a housekeeper in my own home, raising our daughter alone. The room went completely silent. Victoria's face had gone pale. Yes, Victoria. Isabella isn't the maid's daughter. She's my daughter. My firstborn. I discovered this shortly after Maria's death, when I found her diaries. DNA tests confirmed it. Isabella is not just my stepdaughter, she is my flesh and blood. I heard Victoria make a choking sound, but I couldn't look at her. My eyes were fixed on the key in my hand, the one my mother had given me all those years ago. I was a coward, Harrison continued reading. I should have acknowledged the truth then. Instead, I watched in silence as Victoria tormented her own sister, too afraid of scandal to stop it. I let Isabella leave, thinking she was unwanted, while giving Victoria everything she demanded. My guilt and shame made me a worse father to both of them. Finally, I looked at Victoria. Her perfect composure had cracked completely. She was gripping Bradley's arm so tightly her knuckles were white. This can't be true, she whispered. It's impossible. But I was already walking to the old servants' quarters, where my mother had lived before her marriage to Richard. The key clicked in the lock exactly as it had the day she'd given it to me. Behind the loose panel, exactly where she'd said, was a small box. Inside were letters, photos, and a diary that told the story of a young love destroyed by prejudice and pride. And a DNA test, dated just weeks before my mother's death, proving what she'd known all along. I was Richard Montgomery's firstborn daughter, and everything was about to change. Victoria lunged for the documents as soon as I returned to the library, but Harrison stepped between us. "There's more to the will," he said firmly. "Please let me finish." She sank back onto the sofa, her composure shattered. Bradley had moved away slightly, already distancing himself from what was clearly about to become a scandal. As my firstborn daughter, Harrison continued reading, "Isabella is entitled to her rightful inheritance. Therefore, I leave her 75% controlling interest in Montgomery Industries, the house, and the majority of my liquid assets." Victoria shot to her feet. "This is ridiculous. She forged those documents. She's lying, just like her mother." To Victoria, Harrison raised his voice slightly. "I leave a trust fund of $5 million, contingent upon her completion of 2 years of community service at the Maria Torres Memorial Foundation, which will be established using $10 million from my estate, under Isabella's direction." The irony was almost too perfect. Victoria would have to work for a foundation named after the woman she dismissed as just a maid. "This is impossible." Victoria's voice had risen to a shrill pitch. "I'll contest it. I'll sue. You can't just walk in here after 10 years and take everything." I opened the box my mother had left me, pulling out a faded photograph. It showed a young Richard Montgomery with his arms around my mother, both of them smiling, young and in love. "Look familiar?" I asked, holding it out. "This was taken the summer before my mother's family sent her away, 9 months before I was born." Victoria snatched the photo, her hands shaking. "One old picture proves nothing. You really expect everyone to believe this fairy tale?" "The DNA test results are quite clear," Harrison interjected. "And there are multiple copies filed with several law firms. Your father made quite sure this couldn't be contested." I watched as the reality of her situation finally sank in. Victoria's carefully constructed world was crumbling, just as she had once tried to destroy mine. "Why now?" she whispered, more to herself than to me. "Why didn't he tell us before?" "Because he was a coward," I said simply. "He chose his reputation over the truth. He chose your comfort over my rights. But in the end, he tried to make it right." Victoria's face hardened. "You think you can just walk in here and play lady of the manor? You know nothing about running a company, about our world." "I'm an investment banker with an MBA from Harvard." I cut her off. "I've spent the last decade learning exactly how to run a company. While you were planning charity galas, I was planning for this moment." Her mouth opened and closed soundlessly. "The choice is yours, Victoria," I continued. "You can fight this, waste your energy and money on lawyers who will tell you the same thing Harrison has. Or you can accept the trust fund, do your community service, and try to become someone your father could have been proud of." "And what about me?" she asked, her voice small for the first time I could remember. "Where am I supposed to go?" I looked around the library where she had once tormented me, where I had first learned to stand up for myself. "You can stay here for now," I said finally. "In the East Wing. Consider it a grace period while you figure out your next steps." Her eyes widened in surprise, then narrowed with suspicion. "Why would you show me any kindness?" "Because I'm not you," I replied simply. "I don't need to destroy someone to prove my worth." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of paperwork, meetings, and transitions. I moved into the master suite, while Victoria reluctantly relocated to the East Wing. The company board was surprisingly accepting of their new CEO. Perhaps because I came with fresh ideas and a Harvard pedigree. One evening, as I sat in Richard's old office, my office now, I found another letter, this one addressed just to me. "Dear Isabella, by the time you read this, you'll know the truth. I was a coward in life, too afraid of scandal to acknowledge my firstborn daughter. Your mother was the bravest person I ever knew. She protected you from my weakness, gave you the strength to survive Victoria's cruelty, and loved you enough to wait for the right moment to reveal the truth. I don't expect your forgiveness. I don't deserve it, but I hope that in giving you your rightful inheritance, I can begin to make amends. The company, the house, the money, they're yours by right, but they're also a test. Will you use them to seek revenge or to build something better? I think I know the answer. You are your mother's daughter after all. With love and regret, your father." I folded the letter carefully, thinking about choices and consequences. Victoria was struggling with her community service at the foundation, but she was trying. Sometimes I caught her looking at old photos of our father, perhaps seeing him differently now. The mansion felt different too. I'd hired Carmen, our old housekeeper's daughter, as the new house manager. Her children played in the gardens where I had once felt so unwelcome. Their laughter echoed through halls that had been silent for too long. In my mother's old room, now a memorial library filled with books for underprivileged students, I hung that faded photograph of her with Richard, not to remind me of what was lost, but of what could be rebuilt. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about making others suffer. Sometimes it's about breaking the cycle of cruelty, about building something new from the ashes of the past. Victoria and I will never be close. Too much history lies between us. But we're learning to coexist, to acknowledge our shared blood if not our shared values. And maybe that's enough. Because in the end, I am my mother's daughter, and she taught me that true strength isn't in tearing others down, but in rising above, in turning pain into purpose. The Montgomery Mansion isn't just a house anymore. It's becoming what it should have been all along, a home. Not just for me, but for everyone who needs a second chance.